Welcome back to Vivid Noise, and today I want to talk about a game that I never thought would work for an episode, but here we are. This is Blasterball 2, one of those free trial casual games you played because you found it in the start menu of some PC with a bunch of third-party bloatware, and of course you don't ever get the full game. I only heard of the Blasterball trilogy quite recently, and my curiosity got the best of me, so I went and found an archive of the executable because no way in hell am I installing Wild Tangent's game client, and I proceeded to spend a few days trying to play through this game on a hard mode. If you can't tell by the footage, I gave up on actually recording it on that difficulty, but my efforts made me see this game and others of its kind in a way that I had never considered. Blasterball 2 is by all accounts a casual game. It has a simple control scheme, it has no ambitions of originality, instead content to copy the Arkanoid formula almost to a T. Its system requirements don't exist, and as I said, a decent amount of it is free. And yet, playing the game on the hard setting made me question whether or not calling it casual is an accurate description. It's almost crazy how big of a jump going from medium to hard difficulty really is here. The game goes from a textbook time waster with some nice visuals to a test of reflexes and endurance. The main source of difficulty, apart from the game's speed, would have to be the power-ups, or I guess it'd be more accurate to just call them items, because a good chunk of them make your life even harder. You've got some pickups that indeed help out, like the grow, which extends your paddle, or the slow, which brings the ball speed down to just slightly above the medium setting, but the debuffs are what will get you, no matter how fast you are. If at any point you get something like a mini or a fast, you've already lost a life, because a smaller paddle means your chance of hitting the ball is even smaller, and obviously a faster ball is harder to hit. Even some items that might seem beneficial, like the divide for example, might not always work in your favor. Sure, having more balls to break blocks with speeds up progress, but it also increases on-screen clutter, which will make you more likely to miss one too many of them when they inevitably come back down. Your best chance of survival, I find, is to avoid any and all pickups just so that you avoid the ones that screw you over while keeping an eye out for the laser, which fortunately stands out with its yellow icon. The laser lets you wipe out the playing field in seconds, although that's not a guaranteed victory. Not only do you still have to keep your eyes on the ball while simultaneously aiming your laser fire, but you also have to make sure you don't pick up an item that overwrites the laser. It's incredible how much the tried and tested systems in this, at the time of release, 16-year-old formula changed their dynamic when modifying something as simple as the game's speed. Usually the pickups in a game like this come in both helpful and hurtful flavors to simply keep the game a little more interesting and to provide temporary bursts of challenge while whatever debuff you currently have is active. But when the game moves as fast as it does on a hard, some of these items might as well have a skull and crossbones icon instead, because unless you're a competitive fighting game player or can 100% FC a Dragon Force song on your first try in Guitar Hero, you are losing that life. I do have to give Blasterball 2 some credit for breaking me out of a pretty bad habit I have with any game involving items. I usually just grab whatever spawns in without even stopping to consider the consequences. On easier difficulties here, I can still get away with that, but on hard mode, as I just said, if you're not constantly scanning for the item colors and letter indicators, you simply won't make progress. I've already mentioned this in my Championship Edition DX video that I rarely, if ever, get so engrossed by a game that I just keep playing, getting hooked. That couldn't happen with this game either, but I totally get how such a simple formula has withstood for nearly 40 years. Not only is it an easy concept to grasp and unlike Pong is a strictly solo experience without the need for AI, but as this game just proved to me, it's also flexible. Simply changing the speed of the ball can take the experience from just something to do while waiting for a real game to finish downloading to something that demands your full attention for an extended period of time. Technically, that statement could be applied to tons of other games, but there's just something about the premise here that creates two subtle and simultaneous streams of dopamine. There's the act of ricocheting the ball off the paddle, which is already pretty rewarding. It's the same reason people enjoy ping pong. And then there's the obvious breaking of the bricks, which results in you clearing out an empty space, something we also get satisfaction from. It creates a sense of tidiness. Couple that with needing nothing but a mouse to control it, something that literally every computer has, and the fact that you don't really need much in the way of rendering power to still make it look nice, and you've really got a winning formula. There's also something super specific that I kind of like about this game. When you die, the music resets. I know that sounds like it might get annoying when you're always dying, but it also has an interesting side effect. Playing well means you get to hear more of the song, and there's something about having to earn the music that makes me giddy. I think the composition of the in-game music also contributes to this. The main theme for Blasterball 2 is literally just a 2-chord loop with the same arpeggio over it for about a minute. There's nothing really too interesting going on, yet that's almost a positive because it means that when you die and the song resets, you're not left in anticipation for that resolution that never comes. Although the dynamics and synth texture still have enough variety that you can tell the composition is progressing as you get to hear more of it. I'm probably the only person who would point something like that out, but it feels like it's worth mentioning. Remember earlier when I said that calling this a casual game when on the hard difficulty felt wrong? Yeah, well, that train of thought led me to thinking a little too hard about the very definition of a casual game and what that entails. This gets especially tricky when you take into account how the idea around the casual game has changed with time. If we're talking about casual games today, things look very different compared to what I've been showing you so far. When you think casual game in a modern context, pretty much three things come to mind. Match free, overhead, click on stuff and wait for the action to finish, or maybe a Tamagotchi ripoff. In some ways, these kind of casual games have a bit in common with something like Blasterball 2 in the sense that they don't offer much in originality and have very simple concepts. Also, they are controlled the same way that you would use your device normally, in this case via touchscreen. After looking at more examples, both new and old, I've come to realize that a casual game is most strongly defined by the relationship between the game premise and control scheme. Have you ever noticed how most casual games simply require dragging stuff around or tapping on things? That's because in their attempt to draw in as large of a non-gaming audience as possible, casual games involve you interacting with them in distinctly non-abstract ways. You're never controlling a character or inputting specific button combinations. You're most often doing things that translate more or less literally to whatever it is that you're doing on the device. This is most true in mobile games. Remember Make It Rain? You had to literally swipe vertically on your phone to send the dollar bills flying. Even older games like Fruit Ninja and Doodle Jump have you swiping or tilting the screen to control the game in as literal a way as possible. I feel that this philosophy when it comes to game control is the most consistent thing about casual gaming over the years, and that's why I personally use that criteria to define games of this nature. Using difficulty to determine whether or not a game is casual doesn't really work because on one hand you've got stuff like Blasterball 2 on hard, or the Zuma games, or to a certain extent the Bloons games that are decisively not easy. And on the other hand, you would have to lump Kirby in with the likes of Candy Crush, and I think only Kirby himself would be okay with that. I guess something else that has remained true with time, although evidently has transformed significantly, is the monetization of these sorts of games. In the early 2000s, they would usually be free trials that you would expand by purchasing the game, and with time that has turned into the whole game being free, but you know how it goes, it really isn't. The thing about this is that, unfortunately, the practices common in especially mobile games have made their way into a number of full-price releases, and those games don't adhere to the principles behind casual gaming control schemes. So basically, microtransactions do not casual game make. In fact, some games aimed at what you would call core gamers might go even harder in that direction, which makes perfect sense seeing as those players are far more likely to be invested in whatever they're playing and will want to get as much out of their experience even if it means spending a little more. I just remembered that another trait of casual gaming that has in fact stayed more or less the same is the method of acquiring these games, or should I say how these games make their way on your device on their own. I mentioned that Blasterball 2 and other Wild Tangent games would come pre-installed on certain pre-built family PCs, and the modern equivalent to that is sometimes when your phone is going through an update, you'll get a bunch of mobile garbage shoved in your face that you have to opt out of installing. This seriously happened on my mom's phone a while ago, and good thing I was there to handle the whole process. I would definitely consider this factor to be one of the stronger ones because you won't ever get any overlap into the normal world of gaming. I doubt that my next installation of Windows will ask me if I want GTA 6. I've looked at a few old Reddit threads on this topic, and I'm curious to how you guys would define a casual game. I'll put a link of the archive I found in the description so you don't have to put any weird bullshit on your PC to try it, and I'll even link an excellent review of all free games in the Blasterball series by YouTuber Atomic Purple. And as always, thank you so much for watching another episode of Vivid Noise. I'll see you guys next time.